Good morning. Welcome to, first I'll just introduce myself. I am Shebra Evans, and I proudly serve as the chair of the Communication and Stakeholder Engagement Committee. And we welcome you to our meeting today on this day, April the 25th. Before we get started, I want to have my colleagues introduce themselves, and we have some really fabulous guests and staff here that I'd like for them to introduce themselves as well. So I will start to my right with Ms. Yang.
Good morning, everyone. Julie Yang, District 3.
Good morning, buenos dias. Grace Rivera Oven, District 1. Nice to see everyone.
We'll start with Mr. Fitzpatrick and go all the way around the table.
I'm Ravel D. Fitzpatrick, pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the ombudsman housed within the Montgomery County Board of Ed.
Victoria Van Dyke, board staff.
Michelle Whitaker, Chief of Staff for Councilmember Will Jawando.
Nancy King, Senator, where do I do that? This is all new. Senator Nancy King, I represent District 39, Gaithersburg, Germantown, Montgomery Village, and a former board member.
Yes.
Good morning, I'm Robin Seabrook. I'm the Director of Governance for the board.
Very good. And soon we will have the chair of the Education and Culture Committee meeting, Mr. Will Jawando, join us. And so it's so good to see you all at the table and to just further our discussion that we've been having over the course of this school year in our committee. This year we wanted to highlight for our viewers, our internal and external stakeholders, how we wanted to take just a quick glance at how we are receiving feedback from our community based on the communication that they're receiving from MCPS. And we started off by having our first meeting asking our community, how are you experiencing and receiving communication from MCPS? Our second meeting consisted of MCPS coming back to talk about how they utilize the feedback that they received from our community stakeholders from our first meeting, as well as communicating how they go about communicating with our stakeholders. And then our third meeting, our third meeting consisted of our community partners coming to have a discussion around how they engage with our families around communication, and also they shared with us the services that they provided to our families. And so with this very last meeting, and I'll take a moment to pause to allow Mr. Jawando, come on, introduce yourself to everyone.
Let's see. Good morning.
Yes.
Councilmember Will Jawando, Chair of the Education and Culture Committee.
Absolutely.
Good to be with you.
Good to see you all. And so this last meeting that we're going to have today, we just wanted to have a discussion about how the BOE communicates with our local government as well as our partners at the state level. And we wanted to kick that off with Ms. Robin Seabrook. She's in the board staff, and just wanted to, really what we're doing today is having a conversation. But before I begin that conversation that I'm so excited to have, I'm going to ask my colleagues if you have any comments or edits to the informational summary. Okay.
Looks good.
Okay, very good. So seeing that there are none, we'll jump right into the conversation that I wanted to get started with. And so I wanted to highlight for our community how the board goes about putting together our legislative platform, what that process looks like, and if you can share that with everyone and kind of walk through that with us. I'll just ask you some questions as we go along, but just really wanted to inform our community. They see us at the board table twice a month giving presentations, but there's so much more work that we do behind the scenes that we wanted to educate our community on. So we'll begin with Ms. Seabrook. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Again, my name is Robin Seabrook. I'm the Director of Governance in the board office. Typically, we would have a legislative coordinator here talking about this. The legislative coordinator in the board office is responsible for really representing the board's interest before General Assembly and serving as a liaison between the delegation down in Annapolis. The position also serves as a liaison with county council and responds to inquiries from constituents. And so we lost our former legislative coordinator in March, and so I've had the pleasure of getting up to speed pretty quickly on what this role looks like and how we track legislation and how we gauge the board's interests and priorities for the legislative session. And so today I'll provide an overview, and if I could get the first slide up, please. Thank you. I'll provide an overview, a quick overview about how the board determines its legislative interests and priorities, how we communicate those priorities to our delegation, how the board tracks those, the legislation and takes positions based on their interest during the General Assembly session. So let me start with the board's annual priorities. And so this year, every year, the board comes up with annual priorities during the summer, during their summer retreat. And these priorities are really meant to direct the work of the superintendent, to guide the work of the board, to guide the work of the committees. These priorities are also connected to the board's 3-year strategic plan. And so we will be revisiting these priorities with the board this summer, but this year, the 4 priorities that the board settled upon were improving math and literacy rates, having a safe and inclusive school climate, two-way communication between schools and families, and improving recruitment, retention, and distribution of highly qualified and diverse staff. And so we went into the fall with these priorities in mind, and these priorities guided the work of the board this year. And so for anyone who watched any of our board or committee meetings, should have noticed that our agenda topics generally are falling into one of these categories. In addition to that, we use these priorities to guide legislation, the board's position on legislation. You'll also see on this slide to my left, you'll see some of the broader categories during the legislative session that generally are standard over time, things that fall into the board's platform. So for instance, the first one, and this is hard for me to see too, the first one on the top with the arrow down says unfunded mandates. And so these are, yes, Senator King said those are bad. These are positions that we know that the board will take in their legislative platform. So if a bill came up and there was a mandate on the system to act in a certain way without funds attached to it, we know that under the board's platform, we would generally, the board would generally oppose that bill. Another one that is popular here, you'll see local autonomy and curriculum mandates. Those are also 2 things that fall within the board's platform where we know generally the board would oppose any bill where the board would lose local control and local autonomy. If you can go to slide 2. Next slide, yep. Okay, so this is pretty tiny as well, but these are the 3 pillars of the strategic plan. So as I mentioned before, the board's priorities, the annual priorities, are guided by the strategic plan. Our strategic plan pillars are academic excellence, well-being and family support, and professional and operational excellence. So again, things that fall into, and there are descriptions there in each one of those categories. And so for bills that fall squarely into these pillars, we would know in our office what the board's position would generally be on bills that come up. And so that is how the board chooses its priorities and created this platform. So before I go on to communicating our interests with the delegation, any questions or conversation around that?
Well, you know what I was going to say was I appreciate that our Senator Nancy King is a former school board member, and I chuckled when she made
About 100 years ago.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
I still remember everything.
I know you do. I know you do. And when Ms. Seabrook made the comment about unfunded mandates, you made me chuckle with your response. But so just going to that. I'll say this, I'm so glad that we have collaborative partners at the county level and at the state level, but just like you said, it does give the board pause when there are unfunded mandates, when we feel like that local control is being taken away. But there are times when we do support legislation, and I'll get to Senator King about, what it looks like to craft legislation around education, but can you just talk about, just briefly for the community to hear, when we support some of the legislation, why we do that, when we say that we want local control, what it could look like when the board opposes legislation, why we might do that, and or either give an example of when we support, why we support, knowing that we say we want to make sure it's not an unfunded mandate, that we maintain local control, and that what it looks like when we oppose it, and possibly when we support with an amendment, because we do that sometimes. So pick one of those or two of those and talk about that, just to give some background.
Okay, well, I'll start with one example of something that that the board this year opposed. And this was a bill, House Bill 266 was a bill regarding bronchodilators and EpiPens and the availability and use of those in the schools. This is a bill that did not, although it sort of related to well-being and family support, it did not fall squarely into the platform. So we brought that bill to the table for the board to discuss and vote. And sometimes, even when a bill falls within the platform, a board member may pull it and decide, let's discuss this anyway, even though you think you know what our position would be. And so this one, the bronchodilator and EpiPen availability and use, was a hot topic at the board table this year. We had staff here from MCPS, our medical officer here to testify. We knew coming to the table that MCPS opposed this bill because it was an unfunded mandate on the schools in terms of having personnel trained on that, and I believe it would make us give up some local control on how staff would administer the bronchodilator and EpiPens. And so after much debate around the table for that, and after hearing from MCPS here at the table about their position, the board opposed that bill. And so that's an example of one that was not in the platform and that you all opposed. Did you want me to give one of support?
Yes, please. You could think of one.
Support is easy because many of the ones that we know you support will fall into the platform. I think this year one of the ones that you all supported was we had a nutrition. I think there was one related to nutrition early on in the session, and that really was in alignment with well-being and family support for our schools and our students. And I think it was an easy one to support because we were already doing a lot of that work within the district for schools and nutrition and school lunch.
Sure. I'll ask my colleagues. Do you have any questions? Ms. Yang?
No, I think I remember that one, and that one is funded too. It was like enhancement of our current practices, but it's funded by the state. It was a proposed bill. Yes, so I remember that.
Yep.
Okay. Ms. Rivera, okay.
We had a few bills this year also that had to do with changes in curriculum that the board opposed for that reason, because we want control over our own curriculum.
You know, I do have a comment. So I think there are a lot of, when a bill comes out, it really is to address some needs in the community. And we actually feel like a lot of bills can enhance, the life of our students and
Sure.
family. But what we are looking at is whether this is unfunded mandate or it take away our local control. It is not that when we oppose a bill, it's not like we are opposed to the spirit of what the bill is trying to achieve. It's we are looking at how we can have it done locally. And I will have to say in the future, when we discuss bills or the bills that might not fall squarely on our platform, that we need to have a deliberation on the table. Right now, we actively seek the school system's feedback, and we put it on our agenda to allow community members to provide input. In the future, I do see the area that we can be more actively seeking big community partners' input on those bills so that we have better understanding of the issues out there. But I want to thank you for stepping up on the plate to take on this additional responsibility for this year. We really do appreciate it very much.
Yes, you have done a great job. Can you touch on, do you have an example of when we supported with an amendment?
We had one this year that had to do with bus stops. And so I'm thinking off the top of my head. There was one that had to do with speed limit or bus stops. Do you all remember that
Oh,
one?
I do. You're jogging my memory. It was, I think what the legislation was going to do was ask that if someone passed a bus stop,
That's
instead
right.
of giving them a warning, give them a not instead of a citation, give them a warning.
time, that's right, the first time passing the,
Right.
Because we opposed that bill as a council. So this is interesting to hear too, because obviously we meet every week.
Yes.
That
Please fulfill and dripping. Yep.
Yeah, no, that the state legislature is in session as a council to have state legislative session where our, folks who work in Annapolis, the lobbyists basically, that are county staff, our Office of Legislative Affairs for the county executive and us, which we share, they come and present on what's going on, and we take positions on certain bills that are aligned with our priorities. And one thing that I'm realizing is that we don't talk to you guys about
Turn your light on it.
well,
Turn your light on. Turn your light on.
I think we talk to some of the state legislators a little more, but maybe not as much as we should. Just like a marriage or a relationship, more communication is always better.
Yes.
But I'm realizing on a bill like that, for example, like we should have been
Absolutely.
talking about that.
Right,
We should have.
right.
About our, and have some sort of, to the extent that we can, we might not always agree, we're all elected officials, but we should be talking about it, and we should have your perspective.
You should.
So that's something I just.
okay, and I'm just being reminded that we actually did oppose it. There was a lot of conversation at the table on that one.
We actually opposed.
We were, I think that was brought by someone from our delegation, and maybe we were at the table, we had a lot of conversation around it because I think folks wanted to find a way to support with amendment, but I'm just being reminded that we ended up actually opposing that
And-
one as well.
And I also recall another bill about the drills happen in our school, the
Emergency.
The safety drills.
safety drills that
Yes,
we support with an amendment. We don't want to be dictated what time that we should conduct these drills, but we we support the spirit and we support the local autonomy of we will do these drills and we should do these drills, but let us decide the timeline and how to communicate with the family.
That's right. That was the active shooter
Shooting
drills.
drills,
That's
yes.
right.
I had a bill in, was last year, year before last, to cut down on the number of fire drills. Because we had so many of those with all the other drills that needed to be done, it was just way too many, so.
So can we just jump to you? We'll come back
Sure.
to you. 'Cause I think this is
Sure.
perfect to like interact, right? Have interactive discussion. Can you talk a little bit about what goes into crafting legislation around education or what the thinking is behind
Sometimes
it?
a lot, sometimes not enough.
Okay.
A lot. But what I'm thinking as I'm listening to all this conversation is how important it is to have the relationships
Yes.
between the council and the legislature and the Board of Education and the legislature, because people come up with bills, brilliant ideas that they might pick up at the grocery store or wherever. They put a bill in, and without talking to all the parties, they think it sounds like a great idea, and it might be good just for Montgomery County, but for Western Maryland or the Eastern Shore, it's terrible. So that's one of the things that we have to look at, is not just for our own county, but for the whole state. So the feedback we get from you is so important, because we know then whether to support it or not.
Yeah. And so we really do appreciate our partnership. I know, I mean, as elected official, of course I should know, but have a great relationship with every state legislator, right? And we are able to pick up the phone and call to ask questions. Let me ask you, then Robin can chime in. How do you view the annual meetings that we have with you all, our Montgomery County delegation? We usually do it in the month of November, just to kind of, before you go into session, we're bringing you all together to kind of share some of our priorities, let you know what's on the horizon for us, as well as try to get ahead of any bills that come out. Tell me what that means to you as you go.
Well, to me, I mean, it kind of guides what I'm looking for as far as legislation, any kind of education legislation goes. But, we have so many events all through the year that we are all at, and that, I think, helps us to be on a kind of a first name, a friendly basis, so that if I see something coming up that looks bad, I can make a call to any one of you and kind of sound the alarm. But things happen so fast in Annapolis. I mean, all of a sudden, and we had over 2,000 bills this year, but something will come up. Members on a committee might think this is a great idea, and it could fly. So it is so important to be able to get someone on the phone right away to be somebody from the board, to be able to find out whether we should slow it down or whether we should let it go. And that relationship is just really, really important.
Yeah. Well, great to hear. And so, Robin, I know you, to some degree, help to plan that event. Talk about why we as a board think it's important and what goes into that planning.
Can I just interrupt?
Absolutely, you
Add
can.
something?
You can.
One thing that has always troubled me is, we run on a committee system
Sure.
in Annapolis. And if you're on the Judiciary Committee or you're on if you're not on one of the committees that deals with education, you're so focused on the legislation that is in your committee, and you're
Okay.
not focused on, because you can't focus on everything.
Anything else?
So it is really, really important to be able to, if there is something that the board really, really doesn't like, that we have a way to communicate with those members on the other committees. Because all they care about, and it brings me back to the thing in November, they care about what they need to know to vote. They don't need to know all the history. They don't want to know it all. They just, because they can't get into all of that. They want to vote right, though. So it's very important to let them know how they should vote on things on the other committees.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
I mean, even when we're sitting there in November, the people that aren't on the education committees are the ones that are kind of gazing off into because it's not their thing. It's not, but they want to be responsive and they're here. So that's what we've got to find a way is to communicate with people that aren't on education committees.
You're right, because we are focused on
Sure.
getting
Sure.
everyone all the same information with the assumption that there's some knowledge to what we're sharing, and we're in that meeting, or just because we're meeting annually, right? So it doesn't allow time to really get in depth the way we want to, but
Right.
relationships matter and they're really important. And we try to make sure that there's someone in our office in addition to us as board members staying in touch with
Well, and you
everyone.
might look at, I mean, I've got Gracie she's my district person. So
Yeah.
if I had something that I wanted to talk about from my district, I'd be calling her.
Sure.
And maybe that's what we need to do, is kind of split up by districts and form those relationships so that we can,
have a go-to person.
right.
This is a very good
Sorry to
point
interrupt.
of trying to reach all legislators. Yeah.
Absolutely, this is great feedback. Ms. Seabrook?
I was just going to say that's great feedback too, because we were looking at trying to reimagine what that November meeting looks like for this year,
Yes.
and how we could be, how we can make it more effective, and maybe also invite more invite the county council as well, because I thought that we had an open invitation to council, but we don't usually see county council members there, right?
Maybe we just need to be more explicit or intentional
So I think.
in inviting you all, because it's definitely open. It's a public meeting. You're welcome to come.
I've been on the education committee 5 years now. I've never been there, and I've never even known about it. So
Right.
that doesn't mean you didn't invite us, but
Right.
make it to me.
Got your calendar.
So this is good feedback for going forward about how we maybe make better use of that time and really look at who we have in the room and what conversations we have. We've heard from, what we typically do is have the delegation come, we have breakfast, we share. The superintendent gives a presentation with her staff. The board talks about their priorities. We like to have it to be a dialogue, so that we also are hearing from members of the delegation about their questions, any information they need, and anything that they plan on introducing, any bills that they plan on introducing. And we've heard mixed opinions about the level of data that we've been giving to the delegation. So typically we give a packet of data about our schools, and we separate that data by district, right? So we've heard mixed opinions about the minutia and how much data we give and how much information we give
But if you
in the
don't give a
moment.
lot of data, somebody's going to complain because you don't give enough data.
Sure.
You're hiding data, and you're not hiding data, so.
Right.
Right. So we are looking to reimagine that, but it's good to hear that the data is helpful. So any feedback we could get on that would be great.
Okay.
And maybe even involving, because as far as I know, we don't necessarily involve members of the delegation or your staff or county council staff in the planning of it. Right? And so I don't know whether it would be helpful to involve you all in the planning of it to really get a sense of what you need. That might be helpful up front, as opposed to doing what we've always done.
No, I was just gonna piggyback on that. I was just gonna say that that I think that would be helpful, because there's also things that the council is thinking about on issues of education or that interact with safety and education and so on. That would be helpful to have someone like Michelle and others involved in putting together that agenda, and that would getting kind of ahead of the horse, because as Senator King said, things get so crazy once the ball starts rolling in Annapolis, once the ball starts rolling at the council and even here, that it's kind of hard to stop and be like, I would like to get off now at this stop, please. That doesn't happen, right? So it'd be really helpful to kind of have that agenda and then to check in, halfway through to see where some of these bills are, where some of these ideas are, because some things do take off. Like I can think of the universal meals, that did really well starting, in the House, but it did not really take off in the Senate. So just to kind of check in where things are and that synergy.
Can I just add that
Absolutely.
we, over the last couple of years, have had way, way, way too many bills, and we've tried to find a way to cut down on it because we don't have enough time in 90 days to do justice for all the bills that we're putting in. So 2 years ago, I made the suggestion that we, as the majority leader, that we cut it down, and so we told people they couldn't put more than 25 bills in. So then I went back and did the research, and I found that most people had really only put 7 or 8 bills in.
Oh.
But once we passed this thing for 25 bills, everybody put 25 bills in. So we ended up this year with way more bills than we could really. I mean, there was a lot of good stuff that died because we just didn't have the time to put into it. And we also have a lot of new legislators, but we have people that come up with a great idea, write up a bill or have a bill written up and they submit it, but they haven't done the background and the work on it. And that really slows the committee way down by hours, having to basically write a bill in the committee. So we're also looking at ways that we can streamline it so that we don't have as much on our plate to deal with.
So do me a favor, Senator King, just briefly, because we have millions of viewers watching.
Millions.
Like to say, watching it all.
We're very optimistic.
Right,
in this
and so I don't want to make the assumption that everyone knows like your history and what roles you currently play at the state level. So can you just talk about the committees you sit on and what you do, just real?
Okay, well, I was on the Board of Education many years ago. Served with when Pat O'Neill was here, and so then I went on and went to the House of Delegates for 5 years, and then in 2007 I went to the Senate. So I'm the Senate Majority Leader and serve on I chair the Education Committee on Budget and Tax. So I handle like the university budgets and all kinds of crazy budgets I handle. But anyway, it's my job to help to make sure that the money gets to education the way I want it to.
Okay. Let me ask you this question, because there's a lot of things that I don't want to get that false impression that we do things behind the scenes, but in conversations and in the work that's being done outside of the boardroom, can you talk about a time, if there has ever been one, where something that the board has done that has impacted legislation at the state level? And
Board has done well.
yes, so
That has done the maintenance of effort issue that I worked really closely with the board on this. With COVID, most school systems were not able to make maintenance of effort. So I was able, working with the boards and working with the state board to just hold off on making the maintenance of effort until the numbers started to come back up. So this is the last year, I think. We've done it every year. Right. This will be the last year that we're on the old numbers, because the enrollment numbers in MCPS should be up to where they should be by September.
Absolutely.
So we should be able to go back to our regular raising of the maintenance of effort.
yes. So we appreciate you. It does help having you at that level in your position, and then having been a former school board member, like you understand it in ways that others do not. And so I don't know that people really realize that, but that was huge for not only Montgomery County, but all of the districts in the state of Maryland to have that come out, particularly during COVID. So
see, that's why I like to keep the close relationship that I have, and I can call Dr. McKnight anytime and talk to her and get answers, and that is just so beneficial to me, because like I said, things start to move really fast in Annapolis, and I have to hear from somebody
yes.
in the school system that knows kind of what people are going to go for.
Yes.
So.
Relationships matter, our partners matter, and it's just really important that we all stay in constant
But I
contact.
say that in Annapolis too. You can go to Annapolis with the greatest idea in the world, the greatest piece of legislation, and if you haven't made the relationships, the friends, the people that can count on you and believe in you, your legislation goes nowhere. So you have to do relationships. It's the same way here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn to Ms. Yang, and then I'm going to go to Councilmember
Okay.
Wando.
All right, so So Senator King, we know that you have been allies for education, and actually our whole delegate, are allies. So right now, for one way the state help us is through some per pupil funding and some initiative, right? Right now, our per pupil funding for Montgomery County states for this is about $5,238. It has gone up, but we know that everything else has gone up significantly. So, and because this is must-see TV, there are millions of people watching out there, and I want to I would like the whole state to have a new, realize the reality in Montgomery County that we have changed in many ways, especially our population has changed.
Definitely.
The poverty level, the needs of our students. So that per pupil funding, I know you are fighting for it, but we really need it. Like we were at Seneca Valley High School just last week, and it was shared with us the English as a second language learners percentage, student number was from 30-some students 2 years ago to 180 students this school year. Northwest.
That was at
I'm sorry.
Northwest.
Northwest,
Right. Okay.
yeah. So
But all the schools in my whole area
right.
are, like, I mean, there's just a change in the
So I really would like that the whole state have a new perception about the needs in Montgomery County.
Well, it's something that I think we all have to work on as far as making people understand that. I mean, it used to be Montgomery County was this rich county that just had everything, and our population has changed. And I think we're doing a pretty decent job in working with that population. I mean, I look at my own district is so changed in the last 5 years even. I was at Watkins Mill High School the other day for a walkthrough and a visit and got to talk to some of the students. And I was really impressed. I met with, I think there were six kids that were seniors that all got full scholarships going someplace. One was going to University of Wisconsin on a full ride. They all, great school. There's a difference in our community, but it's not bad. It's not a bad change, and people we need to communicate that with people.
Right. Wonderful. Now, one more thing. We know the blueprint is something that it's going to guide a lot of our funding and effort within the school system. One of the things I wonder if you see any initiative or funding coming through is about the apprentices program, because the blueprint mandated like the 45% of our graduates have internship or in industry credentials upon graduation. Right now, we are very far from that. So do you see anything
We have
coming
one
down?
senator that is really, Senator Jim Rosapep is a major apprentice person, and we always, he's in every conversation talking about apprenticeships, but there is quite a bit of that in the blueprint.
Okay.
Senator McCray was big on that as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
So we hope to see more support in that area in terms of funding and
Yes. It's such a huge project.
Right.
The blueprint is. It's hard to even. I mean, there's just so much in it, but I know there is apprenticeship stuff in there.
Yes. Okay. Very good. And I'm quite certain that Ms. Fisher and Mr. Cram, our communications team, is taking notes, and we'll make certain that we do a better job. We can always do a better job at communicating all the good that is going on within our public school system. And what I'm going to ask our partners that are sitting before us today is to help us share that good news. Mr. Councilmember Jawando is an avid tweeter, so we'll make sure we add him or something to let him know. And many of our delegates and senators do the same. They're on social media, but we'll make sure too at our annual meetings that we, in addition to sharing what our priorities are, that we'll continue to share all the good works that are going on. And I just want to thank you too. You were at the Norman and Ruth Rails and Pat O'Neill Foundation event, and we awarded 195 students, or 194 students with scholarships. So that was an awesome night. So I appreciated your words that you gave at the event.
I'll tell you what, that was a huge undertaking for the people that chose all those scholarship winners. There were like 1,000 resumes that were read in order to come up with 194 winners.
Yes.
So it's a major, big job, and I think it'll be bigger next year because more kids will have applied for it. So
Yes. So that was great. And so I know that this is our final meeting, and so we want to make sure that we get all that you all into the conversations.
Can I add one thing?
Yes, you can.
years ago, we had a full-time person. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
he's
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
We had a full-time person who actually stayed in Annapolis during the session and followed every single piece of legislation, and she would come back to the board meetings and she would talk to people, but she would form relationships with all the delegation and just drop in to see them every once in a while, and she would have a sheet telling them what to vote on, and very helpful. And I know it would be another person and that kind of thing, but it's just something to think about.
Okay.
Because it's those pieces of legislation can be really costly if they get passed without everybody paying attention to it. So just a thought.
Mr. Vera Oven?
No, I just was wondering if you know of other jurisdictions that have that currently.
Prince George's County used to. I think they might still. And I don't, the others aren't Montgomery County.
Gotcha.
Okay, so at this time, well, thank you, Senator King, for your remarks. And Ms. Seabrook, we'll come back to you if we need to, if you weren't able to share, but we want to get to Councilmember Jawando, who is the chair of the Education and Culture Committee meeting. It's so good to have you here today, and I just wanted to have you share a little bit with our community the interaction that you have with not only MCPS, but the Board of Education through the Education and Culture Committee meeting, and just talk about the information that you get, how you use that to inform your work, as well as share that with your colleagues when it comes time for you all to make these important decisions around the CIP budget, the operating budget, and how you might use it for your work session. So,
Thank you, yeah, and thank you for having me, and it's good to be here with Senator King and the distinguished members of this committee. As I was thinking before I get to the county level, we're missing out, I think, on an opportunity. There's always communication gaps, right, between state legislators and the council on a whole range of issues. Mm-hmm. We do have, a team that represents us in Annapolis, both the county executive and us, and we communicate primarily through that team. But I do think there's, whether it's this November meeting or other, that's a good start.
Sure.
We should have a meeting where we're kind of all getting on the same page related to our delegation, at least the committee that I chair, but if not, and any other council member that's interested, and the board on what the priorities are around education-related bills going to Annapolis. Like, we should have that conversation.
Absolutely.
And we're not. I think it's kind of ad hoc right now. So I would love to, and the November could be a good place to do it. But I think that we would benefit from that, just more coordination.
Very good, yeah.
And the school bus bill is an example. We ended up being on the same place, but we didn't talk about it.
we didn't know. Yeah.
So I just found out today that I didn't even know you all took a position. So I need to at least make sure our Leg Affairs folks are tracking and engaging with you at a minimum, and making sure that we know, and we're factoring that into what we are going to say. Mm-hmm. If we say, and vice versa with this, to the state folks when they're in session. And I do think the planning piece is important, like what the agenda is, because I have 11 council members and I'm the chair. We have 3 on the committee and we have 11 total, but everyone has views on education. It's half our budget, so everyone cares about it. So it's $3 billion of the budget. So we want to know, people have information, and I think it'll provide a good outlet for us too, and give everyone a heads up of what people are thinking.
Absolutely.
And help us corral it. So I think that's a big part of my role too, as chair, being chair this year and having served on the committee for the last 4 years, is helping to, obviously, we're in budget time now. We're trying to shepherd through. We have your second operating budget session tomorrow. And then we'll have the third on May 4th, where we'll make a recommendation of the level of funding for the budget that you all have submitted to the county executive, and that he has subsequently submitted to us on March 15th. And it's in our hand. We have the ball now. But that's it's really important. As you all have been at our sessions. We have a constant engagement at the NC committee with all levels of MCPS staff, the board. Usually the board president is the one who represents the board there, and Ms. Silvestri now, and we're the fiduciary responsible party, right? And you all know this as well as us. When they'll come to the board and advocate for something, but I hear about strawberry milk just as much as you do, or whatever, whatever the issue is.
Yes.
That was painful.
Yeah, that was a tough one. But there's for the public, they know that their tax dollars go to fund the school system and other county services. So that when they come to, there should be no wrong door for them. We should be feeding people back to each other in the sense that, which I know we do.
Yeah, we try.
I say a lot, well, the board decides the policy, and they decide how to spend the money. We appropriate the money in broad categories, and
Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
the board,
know.
you guys are elected officials, and you decide how to spend the money and what the priorities are and what the curriculum is and all that, and that's our relationship. And we are the ones who conduct oversight and have the budgetary authority ultimately. And so that's a partnership by its very nature, how it was designed. So I think, and as you know, we're in active conversations now about how to strengthen that communication.
Yes.
And how to strengthen that oversight and collaboration, because we're the ones, you guys don't have taxing authority, we do, right? So we have to get the money to give, and so I think it's an important relationship, but one that of mutual respect and collaboration. And I do think that I've been focused as I've started as chair in December to make sure that our sessions are data driven, fact based, where we're having good follow up, and a good communication loop with the system and the board on. What we are finding out. A lot of times board members, Ms. Rivera-Oven and, others have showed up and will attend our sessions, and it's really helpful. And sometimes they will send us additional thoughts, or before or after. And I think that's a good thing. We are, we're really fortunate to have such a strong school system, such a strong county. To your point, Ms. Yang, I think we always are trying to remind our public, the millions watching at home, as I like to say, and I'm so glad you all say it too, that we have over 40% of our students who are in free and reduced lunch, and and the Everfarms rate is going to be higher than that.
Absolutely.
So nearly half of our school system is kids in poverty. That is a dramatic difference from when I grew up here, when, even 10 years ago. And I think that's something that Annapolis needs to know, and I know you're all constantly trying to emphasize that requires more resources. It requires a different approach to how we have a whole bunch of newcomers, English as a second language, diversity. We just had the Wallet Hub list again of 3 of the top 10 most diverse cities in the country. Gaithersburg topping the list in the country. German district. Yeah, there you go. Germantown and Silver Spring, where I grew up, and being in the top 5, that's a great thing, but it comes with great responsibility about how do we provide the resources. So I'm thankful for our partnership, and I do want to make sure we continue to strengthen the state, county, and county council and board conversations so that we can be more aligned. I think Senator King's suggestion about a legislative officer for yourselves that they can communicate maybe with ours and with the that would actually be I think a good usage. There's so much going on with the blueprint and tracking that over time, even just and the school system might, maybe it's someone that they have that does it but reports to the board. You guys you decide amongst yourselves
Or
about
changes
that.
that might need to come from the blueprint,
Right.
be in the blueprint.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah, the changes and just keeping track of that, and you have a blueprint monitor. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, when we first finished the blueprint for the first year, people would come to us with changes they wanted to make, and we said, look, no, we're not making any changes now until we get started with it and are able to see what, we don't want to start changing it here, there, and everywhere and have it not be what we wanted it to be. But now we're to the point where we can start making some changes, so we'll need to hear from the school systems who are the ones that are implementing this.
Sure.
As to what changes need to be made, and sooner probably rather than later, so that we could maybe get legislation ready
That makes
before January comes.
Right.
Because, this year, if you put a bill in late, it just never, by the time it got through both houses, it didn't make it. So if it's something that really needs to happen, it needs to get done early so that we can get it through both houses.
Okay.
I'll give you a perfect example, then I'll pause and happy to have a dialogue. The funding of the blueprint responsibilities, it was designed in a way so that over time, the local jurisdictions took more of the bill, right? So that, whether it's teacher pay or any of the things that are in there, early childhood, and so how are we going to do that? Right? That's a conversation we should all be engaged in. That's a 10-year, right now we're having a discussion about a one-time property tax increase, but that's not going to solve the problem for, as the salaries need to keep rising, which they should, right? For example, you just take teacher pay. And so we should be in conversation, I use collective we, about, and I know the state will be thinking about revenue packages next year, but at the county level, right, how are we going to pay for our share?
Right.
And that's not necessarily a board question, but it's a board question in that we have to all comply with the law. And so we need to be talking, I think, pretty openly with the public and with each other about what that would mean.
I agree, because I want the community to know that we're good stewards, and we're fiscally responsible, but there are a lot of needs that are coming down the pike that we're going to take care of. And so when they see our budget, it's not a surprise or a aha or a gotcha that they are hearing the discussion. So I appreciate you saying that out loud, because that's what we're trying to do. We could do better.
We have heard from some of the rural counties already.
Sure.
have just
It's a
said,
heavy lift.
We can't do this.
Absolutely. I know.
So we've just got to look at it all.
Absolutely. I serve on the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, the executive committee, as the secretary. So I'm at the meetings that we have, and we have a diverse board of directors, and we are hearing the more rural, they are really concerned, even in terms of trying to do the teacher pay. They don't have the money. It's a struggle all the way around. And I don't know if a lot of people know that Montgomery County, I could speak for Montgomery County, that we tried to, as soon as the legislation came out, we tried to make sure that we were doing small increments to make sure that when
It wasn't so steep.
that it wasn't so steep, right? That when the date came that we had to make sure that we reached these goals, that we were doing it in advance, and that's what we're doing now. So I just really want people to be educated, to understand, and to know that we are all partners. We're having conversations, ongoing conversations. We need to continue to do that, and that we do hear the voices of our community, and that when you bring it to the board, that it doesn't just stay here, that we take what you say and we bring it to our county council, to our state officials. And this was just, I'm really glad that you all were able to make time in your schedules to be able to come and talk. Ms. Seabrook, did you have a comment before we go?
No, I just wanted to, because one of the partners that we haven't mentioned, but you just mentioned, MABE.
Yes.
And so I just wanted to say, in terms of partnership with external folks, they are a great resource for us. They were a great resource for me in coming up to speed in this, but to also hear about what's happening across the state. And so we do use them as a resource. And we also have a board member sitting on MABE's legislative committee, Brenda Wolf. Sits on that. But those regular meetings during session are very helpful too, and it's very helpful to have thought partners around some of this legislation because it is happening so fast. So we meet with them regularly during session as well, and they've been a great resource for us too.
I just wanted to plug Brenda.
I don't think of the guy's name from me, but he testifies.
John Willems.
Yeah. He testifies a lot.
Yes.
Yep.
And Brenda, so Ms. Wolf, she co-chairs the legislative committee, as well as she serves on the board of directors with myself on MABE. So we all should be proud to know that we are the only county that has 2 board members on the board of directors, which that doesn't happen at all. So I appreciate all the work that she does outside of her normal board duties, as well as my other colleagues do a lot of things too. But because of this work is really important, it's good to have 2 eyes and ears there to hear what's going on and to be able to match it up against what we're hearing our colleagues across the state of Maryland say.
I always like to tell people that if they think that Board of Education members only meet twice a month,
Right.
They don't understand what happens, because I think I met more then than I kind of took a vacation when I moved to the legislature, because there were meetings you could go every day and every night.
Absolutely. And my colleagues to the left and right of me, they're also very busy. I think that Ms. Yang is doing a great job of showing our community everywhere that she goes to give people a glimpse of we're not just sitting on the sidelines. This is a part-time job that very much feels full time, but we all enjoy the work. And Ms. Rivera, in addition to her board work, is a nonprofit leader and doing work in the community to help our families. So, Councilmember Jawando, did you have anything to add, or did any of us have questions of Councilmember Jawando? I appreciate your feedback and talking about ways that we can continue to partner to really make sure that we're solid in how we move in Montgomery County. So you're right, we can at the least invite you to the November meetings, and I thought we did extend that. I think we do. We just probably could be more intentional, because I do know the focus is to get our legislators before they go into session, but we have had some council members there, but not the full council. We'll do better at that.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I know it's kind of targeted towards like the pre-Annapolis.
Yes,
but
we
I think
open
we
it.
can be a little more intentional
Sure,
about how we design
sure.
it and make it more interactive.
And from your comments, maybe we need to have our own meeting to really kind of dig deep into some things. I think I heard you say that as well.
I would encourage board members, if you have any ideas for legislation that might be helpful, to let us know as soon as you think about it, so that we can start fleshing it out to see if it's a good idea or not.
Okay. No, that's
be
good.
helpful.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Ms. Seabrook?
I just had a question about what the timing is on that. When would the best window of time for that to happen be? For board members to start talking to you
Well,
about?
because we can pre-file bills after like November,
Right.
so that when we start in January, we're ready to go on those bills. But before November, I think people need to be coming up with ideas. But really, anything between then and January is fine.
Okay. So there,
And I must say that your superintendent is not shy about calling me.
I'm sure. That's good.
She's
Yes.
very good at keeping in
Yes.
touch.
Yes, we definitely want, well, we know that Dr. McKnight
wonderful.
is really great at making certain that she is out, making her broad reach to external community stakeholders. And so we've heard of a lot of different meetings that she's hosted, and some that have not been done in the past, that have been done for the first time, and I know that will continue to be done. It's really important that everybody be brought in, and I think that she also believes that education is everybody's business, right? And so
Sure is.
from what I see, she shares her calendar with us every week, and I don't know how she gets everywhere that she gets, but I'm glad that she's making that outreach and touch with our community, because it's really important that people see her and hear from her. So I know that we all are on a tight schedule. This is probably the shortest committee meeting that we've ever had. It's not over. We're going to touch on, hear from some students, but I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any last minute
I'll
comments
just mention,
from.
as you know, I've started this education tour, which has been really
Oh, okay.
as far as chair of the education committee, and so the goal is to visit all 25 of the clusters and schools at each level. I've been at some visits with Ms. Yang. We were at Clarksburg recently, and so was Ms. Rivera Oven. And I just think I want to find a formal. I put out a newsletter and kind of tell the community about what students and teachers and PTA leaders and everyone is saying. And again, I think just reinforcing this feedback loop that we're all having, I'm excited about, and we're going to think about ways to formalize more of that communication throughout the year.
That's great.
So that we can tell you what we're hearing, and
Very good.
you can tell us what you're, and then I think that will inform what we're all trying to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
One last thing.
Sure.
One other advantage that I have, when I get a call from a constituent with a complaint or something going on, I have good people here that I can call directly and say, look, this is what they're saying, and they can say, and it always ends up being, well, you can explain it like this.
Very good.
And it's so helpful, and it helps them to understand it too.
Very
So
good.
that's really a good thing.
Thank you for sharing that.
I was just going to
Rivera.
say quickly, back at you as well, because if I get a call and it's something with the, I'm so glad. I was just remembering, Nancy, that I worked on your first campaign, and I was right out of college. So it's been such an honor and a pleasure.
Makes me about 100. I think.
It does not.
No.
It does show you how things come full circle, and you just never know the kind of impact.
Exactly. But
Montgomery County, no, I wasn't.
Yeah. But I just, to Councilman Jawando's comment about, it's so important, I think, for the community, especially, we've been talking about the changes in demographics, right? My colleague Julia and I go to a lot of things together, because I think it's really important to show those constituents, those new U.S. citizens and so on, that we're here working for them as well. We're here representing everyone that touches the doors of our schools. And whether at one point you came through a school system and now you don't have kids, but you got an education and an MCPS. So let's not forget that, right? So I just want to say to Councilman Joando, it's nice when there's a good front, if we go together to things, because I think that sends a different message as well, that we have a united front and that we're here, working for the community and listening, which is, I think, the most important thing. The pandemic has left us with a lot of holes and a lot of issues, including with mental health. And the community really wants to share what they're going through, what they need. And I think it's really good when you have folks who are in elected office who are willing to put that extra time and be able, to do that. Like Nancy said, it's not 2 meetings a month.
Right.
This is truly a vocation of and love for children and community. And Julie and I, we're running from place to place. Sheriff's running from place to place. We're all we try to be everywhere. Yes. And we do it because we know it's the right thing to do. But visiting the schools and visiting the community is just as vital. So, and I know you both do it very well as well. So thank you.
I can remember many, many, many winter nights when all my neighbors would be home with fires in their fireplace and stuff, and I was leaving to come to a board meeting. Many nights. And the last year I was on the board, we had 183 meetings. I've always remembered that number. That year. And I bet you're at least at that now. So, yeah.
I lost count. But you told me well what to expect. So I knew, yes.
I warned you, but I knew you could do it.
And before you all leave out, I just wanted to make sure that we introduce Ravel Fitzpatrick. He's our ombuds person. So if there are any questions or concerns, we want you to direct them to Ravel. I can't say his name enough. He's been so excellent since he's been with us. He will track the requests that we get in to show us in a pie chart or a graph, the questions or concerns, where they're coming from, what part of the county, what was at a higher level, like if the issue is around COVID, right? Like he tracked all of the emails that we got back. Even some of our repeat parents have really enjoyed communicating with him. I think they might just call him just to check in to see how he's doing, because he's handled their concerns so well. And so I'll just say in a minute, we're going to hear from our students that have put together a magazine called The Amplifier, right, and how to try to get the message out to the community. I just kind of wanted to reiterate that was the goal this year for the committee, to amplify the voices of our community. And we really do appreciate you all coming here today to speak with us. And we just wanted to let everyone know that we hear you. We get, we have hundreds of emails that we get sometimes in a day, but that sometimes you might not hear back from us, but that does not mean that we have not carried your concern or your feedback forward. We always do that, and this was just a way we're trying to give our community a glimpse of how we do that at the local level and at the state level. So thank you all. Thank you all.
One last person who is really, really helpful to me, Eric Guerci.
Eric Gersi.
Gersi, is that
Yes,
his name? I never say his last name.
That's okay.
Gersi
Yes.
is wonderful.
We will let him know.
He's a one-stop shop. I can call him and get an answer on anything.
Perfect. Very good. So you all enjoy the rest of your day.
For having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Nice to be at the table.
Yes, yes. Okay. So at this time, while we're transitioning, we will allow our audience to prepare themselves to hear from our students. They are from the Bethesda Chevy Chase High School. They work on the county-wide magazine called The Amplifier, and I believe that they will be coming up on Zoom. And they do have a staff member at BCC that works very closely with them. And I am not going to reveal anybody's name. I want to be able to see them on Zoom and have you all introduce yourselves. But we are so happy that we could have you join us today. And so I think in just a moment, the audience will be able to see our panel that will join us for just a few moments to share their work on Zoom. And as we wait on the Zoom to come up and we begin that quick conversation with our students, I just wanted to once again thank Councilmember Jawando, who's the chair of the Education and Culture Committee, Senator Nancy King, with our Montgomery County delegation, as well as Ms. Robin Seabrook for coming today and speaking to our community. And I think I see some heads. It's kind of dark. I can't see your faces. Oh, yeah, that's better. Yes, yes, yes. How are you all doing?
Well, good morning.
Okay, good morning. So can you, real quickly, can you introduce yourself? And so there's someone in the middle. The gentleman to your left, we can't really see him, so can scoot over a little bit. Yes, yeah. It's my left. You're right.
Backlight. I'm going to remove the backlighting here.
Yes. And of course, I want
Let's see.
I want everybody in the room to
There you
introduce
go.
themselves. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Isabella Kreigler. I'm a senior at BCC High School, and I'm one of the editors-in-chief for The Amplifier, Montgomery County's county-wide student-led magazine.
Okay, nice to meet you, Isabel.
Hello, my name is Seder Panabizada. I'm one of the section directors of The Amplifier. I'm in the last edition, and I go to BCC.
Okay, very good. Nice to meet you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gabe Christos. I'm a senior at BCC, and I am one of the editors-in-chief of the Amplifier.
And I think I know who's in the back, but I want him to introduce himself as well. Can you come take a peek? We gotta show you as well.
Hi, I'm just in charge of lighting.
Yes.
My name is David Loplato. I teach at BCC, and I'm the faculty sponsor for the Amplifier, but these guys are the stars.
I know, but we always have great staff behind our students, and we wanted to acknowledge you as well. So thank you. So tell us all why you're here.
Exciting things. They're going to drop a link to the latest edition if you guys didn't get physical copies. I think you did, but if you didn't, and then I'll tell you what they did and the exciting things they have going forward and how you can promote their ideas.
Yeah, so
what's going on?
Do you want to start off with what the Amplifier is?
Sure. So the Amplifier was created basically out of the realization by our editorial team that not all schools have the same passion for journalism, but also the financial means to print their journalism like we do at BCC. It started out very small. In the fall of 2021, that was our first attempt at an Amplifier-like magazine where we recruited a few other writers from 3 schools. I think one was from Einstein, one was from Blake, and we collectively and collaboratively wrote about the increase in violence at the time that we were seeing in the county. That spring, so spring 2022.
Edition.
Sorry, yeah, this was the fall 2021 edition. That was our first attempt at an Amplifier-like magazine.
Very good.
That spring, so spring 2022, we expanded on this idea, and the result was a 100-pager. Thanks to everybody at the Copy Plus office who really made this possible. It was a long journey, and it took so much time, but we're so proud of the result. We had 16 schools involved, 16 high schools all across the county contribute in some sort of way, whether that's students creating art or editing or writing. They were involved in some way, and they helped make this happen.
Right, and that's just for that 2022 edition. We've had 24 schools in total throughout the history of the Amplifier, and then we came out with another edition that's focused on helping women and girls in Afghanistan, that's in collaboration with Irfan's nonprofit School by Any Means, and that was this spring's edition. And we're really just proud of this effort, and we really hope, like we've done a bunch of outreach to different schools, and we reach out to their English teachers and to their journalism teachers and to their administration to recruit different student artists and different student journalists, because this is entirely student created and we do the layout ourselves. But we really do hope, as a school board, that also it would be amazing to do something with just getting the word out through you guys, and just having some way to expand this operation, because what we have gotten and what we have been able to sort of do with creating this community that goes across these different school boundaries has been really special. And so now Irfan is going to talk a little bit about this spring 23 edition, and then I'll talk about our upcoming editions and upcoming projects.
Yeah, thank you so much. As Isabella mentioned, I have a non-profit student-led organization. Basically, I'm from Afghanistan. I came here 3 years ago, and last year in 2022, in summer of 2022, my friends, my peers, and we decided to have a program for like girls in Afghanistan who are banned from going to school, and we decided to come up with the idea of them to get them involved with our journalism program, journalism course over the summer. Thanks to Mr. Loplato, he helped us, and we got through a 2 weeks program, and we got wonderful.
These are just some of the pages too from the publication.
Yeah,
which we put in the chat. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We got wonderful writing skills. We got profile pieces, news pieces from them. They wrote about themselves, about their lives, about school, what does school means to them. And as you can see, it's the product of that program that we did with African girls just 2 weeks, and they were so passionate about working with us together, and they were looking forward to write more for the Amplifier and the magazine.
So then, okay, so great. So then your next issue, you said you were going to touch on that. What is that going to be about? So do you all plan with all the other schools what each issue will be about? Is that what you did? Okay.
Yeah, so basically, a lot of the leadership team is still centered at BCC, but we have section directors from a bunch of different schools, and we meet in person with those section directors, and then we also have art leadership, so that's art directors and art editors from schools, and that's basically like an application process for anyone in any school across the county.
Okay.
And our next edition is actually part of this 5-part series that's focused on the anniversary of 100 years of the teenager, and sort of how that category has evolved over time.
Okay.
And so we're investigating these 5 different aspects of teenage life that are expression, sports, academics, mental health, and socializing. And we're pairing them each with 2 decades from that 100 years. So we're basically working backwards right now. And our latest edition is on mental health, and it's focused on the 2010s and 2020s, and sort of how, students see mental health manifesting in sports, or, a student talking about their own experience with being in a psychiatric ward and how they try to balance their schoolwork with that. A student talking about being in their classroom and just overhearing people say, "Oh, I'm so OCD," and just use these terms as throwaways. So we're sort of finishing up some of the layout for that right now, and that edition will come out by May. We're sending it on May 2nd, so that'll also come out by the end of the school year. And then the next 4 editions will be released coinciding with the quarters of next school year.
Okay.
And so we already have that scaffolding, and we have amazing articles.
Yeah.
So
I am so proud of you all, first of all, for just finding ways to include your peers across the county in this process. That is really, really excellent. Let me ask you, do you have, because the board does get your magazine, which is fabulous, by the way, do you have social media? Can you send us some of your social media so that way maybe we can share how people can go and know to go to get access to the amplifier? Is there a cost to the amplifier?
Yeah, we would love to. So we actually do this in collaboration with the MCPS printing office.
Okay.
Shout out to John Marshall there, who we've had a really great relationship with, and he's able to print these at like a discounted price for us.
Okay.
Right now, as far as social media outreach,
We have a Twitter.
You have Twitter? Okay.
Good use, but we could make it.
Yeah, and we do most of sort of our announcements and things on a Google Classroom that we just share through different, like in different ways. And so we would love to share that. And then also, I just want to include really quickly that there's also a group of students doing the Museum of the Contemporary American Teenager, which has been like a BCC effort in the past, and now we're.
I remember.
So we're expanding it to be a full, Montgomery County and DMV effort. And there's a group of 5 students who have had talks also with Smithsonian curators. And so we now have an agreement for a memorandum of understanding with them. And so we're also just hoping to include, have that outreach and to include a bunch of schools in the amplifier, and then also recruit people from different schools to be involved in MOCAT and be involved it's for the Smithsonian Folklife Festival in 2025. So to be involved with that. And we also have a talk at MLK Library. Mr. Lipolata wanted me to mention this as well, so I'm just plugging it real quick.
Okay.
On May 17th, that's about, it's sort of the student panel on journalism, also from students at Jackson Reed in DC, who we've had a great relationship with the staff and the editors at the Beacon, which is their school newspaper, and are also sort of reaching out to different DC schools.
Okay, very good. So if there are ways that you would like us to, if there are ways for us to be in contact with you, then share that with us, okay? That way we can share it with others, and then I'll allow Ms. Yang and then Ms. Rivera-Oven to ask you questions or to make comments. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Yang. I'm really happy to see student initiative. So thank you for sharing how you get started. And sounds like you are expanding. You're getting into a lot of spaces, right? You are doing cross-cultural understanding internationally. You are collaborating with students from different jurisdictions, to work on common projects. And this is very exciting. Now, my question is, see, I'm always, as an educator, I always want to see how, if something is working, like it's like an enterprise. You are growing it, right? You had an idea, you make it into reality, you found allies, and you found ways to expand. Are you interested in sharing with others, how you get this started, or how in your work are you building? I'm interested in how you build up the pipelines of people that can further, grow your organization. So 2 pieces I want to know. How are you willing to share with others outside? Because you are working on journalism, but this idea of how to take initiative and work on initiative can be something in many different areas. And I can see other students can benefit it. I want to know if you are interested in doing it, and are you doing it? And also I want to know how you're talking about Isabel, you are a senior. So how do you in your organizations train the younger students and build a pipeline to carry on the torch?
Right. Well, thank you so much for that question, or those 2 questions. I think for the first one, the reason for the creation of the amplifier was that so that we can amplify student voices, right? And student voices that otherwise may not have had that channel for them to be heard. And I think that it's really important to keep in mind that it's just sort of by random luck of the draw that we're at BCC and that we have, first of all the resources and the great foundation of the Tatler, and this school newspaper that does print, whereas in DC, there are only 2 newspapers in the whole city, or two school newspapers that are able to print, and also that we've had this great faculty support like Mr. Lopolato. And then your second question also about passing the torch, we think that that's so important. And so we have really, in the Smithsonian pitch group, for example, there's a girl who's a sophomore, and then there's 2 people who are juniors. And we really stressed the importance of sort of teaching the information and teaching some of the leadership to younger people. And then we also have people who are juniors or who are sophomores who are maybe just interested in this, but aren't as familiar with some of the journalistic conventions, or maybe don't have that experience, but who we sort of try to show the ropes and offer them those opportunities, because that's the truth is we'll be gone really soon. So.
Right. So good to hear that. Now, you have a Twitter account. I have a Twitter account. So when you have an addition to share, you can add me. So Julie Yang Moko, and then I'm happy to share with my network of people. It's really good to always hear student voice and know what you are interested in, what is working for you, what your needs are. So wonderful. Thank you.
And Ms. Yang tweets all the time. So if you want to get your message spread wide and far, because we've heard from each of you and you're all doing great things. I tweet, but I cannot keep up with her. So, but no, please share your information with us, okay? You all are doing great things, and we do want to be able to share. And we probably can't touch on all the things that you're doing or have done today, but you've come to the right place, the Communication and Stakeholder Engagement Committee. So, and I'll just say your teacher has been like pressing really hard to make sure you all you were able to share your voice. So you thank him, okay? We try to make sure we were able to fit you in on the agenda, but we always want to hear from our students, especially when you're doing great things to be inclusive, right, of others. Well, I'll let Ms. Rivera-Oven share her comments and questions.
Just a few comments. First of all, nice meeting you all. I'm board member Grace Rivera-Oven. I'm a first generation. I was an ESOL student when I started MCPS in elementary school. And so, just thinking back on my high school years, this would have been so wonderful to have, right? To have an avenue to share those voices, to learn from each other, to learn from the diversity, from the adversity that some of us come from, right? Just to get an understanding where all of us come from. And some of those places are places of conflict and places of pain. And so this is, for me, when I see this makes me so happy that there is a way where young people like yourselves found a way to communicate and to give voice to others, to be able to have that great understanding. So thank you for that, Isabella, Sayid, and Gabriel. And you're going to be going and doing great things. If journalism is your thing, my mom is a journalist, and which is one of the reasons why we're here, because, sometimes journalists in countries of conflict are pursued, because they want to silence them, because they speak the truth. And so journalists have a special place in my heart. So wherever you go, keep up the good work, and I hope to see and read your names in different newspapers or different ways. But I just wanted to echo what my colleague, Ms. Yang, said, the importance of, making sure you plant the seed with others so they're able to do this and find their voice as well. And Sayid, I worked with refugees from Afghanistan this past year. I also run a nonprofit, and we were giving the great honor to help those refugees kind of get integrated into Montgomery County in the school system and so on. So I wish you all the best, and thank you for sharing your story, for having, sometimes it's hard to share our stories with others, but it's all about the learning. We just had Councilmember Jawando and Senator King. We were talking about the state legislature and the county council, and we were talking about how incredibly diverse Montgomery County has become. The city of Gaithersburg just got the most diverse city in the country. Silver Spring is one of the top 4 most diverse places in the country. Germantown is one of the top 4. So imagine that you guys live in a place that is the most diverse place in the country, not in the region, but in the country. And to me, that is a huge asset that we have. It's actually a gift. And you guys have found a way to share that gift with others. So I'm looking forward to the next amplifier. And I don't know if you want to tell us, especially, where you're going to school or what your next plans are, but I think it's just wonderful for us as we sit and make policies and we work really hard to ensure that you guys get the best education and that you're safe and that your mental health, is there, and we're checking in, that it's so important for us to see the products that MCPS has at the end of the day, because that's what gives us, the motivation to ensure that we're working as hard as we can so we can have such wonderful results.
Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you so much.
Yes. And I think we should feel assured that as long as David is still there at BCC teaching, that this will continue to go on long after our students have graduated. So if there's not anything else that you want to share with us, and I think you've shared a great deal, make sure you send us that information, right? We'll allow you all to go back to class. But thank you.
Well, their seniors are checked out.
Well, no,
but then
we're
go
not
back
gonna say
to
that.
class.
And we dropped the link to our scanned version of the most recent edition of the Amplifier, the Spring 2021.
Yes,
Chat.
perfect. And they'll get that to us. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, great talking to you all. Take care.
No problems, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. So that was a great way to conclude our meeting today. We will not go all the way until 12, right? But it was so good to end it on a high note, hearing from our students that are also doing their part to make certain that they're communicating with their peers, right? And to get their message out to our external stakeholders as well. So we will do all we can to continue to support our students. As Ms. Rivera-Oven said, they are our reason, right? And I do want to thank staff, right? Everyone in our building, everyone, whether they're in central office or in our school buildings, everyone plays a huge role in helping us to make certain that our kids make it across the stage to graduation, to do whatever it is that they want to do. But we want to ensure that those efforts, whether it's going in the direction of college or in their career, that once they are out in the community, that they are ready. And so with that, we will adjourn our meeting for today. And thank you all for being present. Adjourn.